So we're going to go through the squat technique to start with. This will be used for both your strength and your technical exposure of the squat. So James will be showing a high bar here today, but we could also be doing a low bar for this. All of the stuff that we cover is applicable to both. It will just be harder to coordinate in the low bar because it will push you forward. So some of that driving back a little bit. Some of those ideas of driving back will be needed to just be a little bit more of a focus if you do choose the low bar. So James is just going to show us the high bar. You probably know what the high bar is. It's nothing too crazy. Obviously the bar is in our back, so it's already going to start to push us forward a little bit. So all of our ideas and the sensory feelings that we're looking for are going to be coming and learning to shift back a little bit. So we're just going to start with the feet first. And what I actually want James to do is just to rock forward onto the toes, rock backwards into the heels, and then find the middle point of the foot and that mid-foot pressure. We're probably going to be looking towards trying to feel like through this section. I don't want too much like medial pressure or lateral pressure. We're just trying to keep the full foot flat the entire time. So once you've done that little shifting drill, find your midfoot and just go through some reps as slow as you need to feel that pressure the whole time. And then coming back up, we'll just do like a set of 3. The tendency will be that in the transition of coming out of the hole is where we're going to start to see a shift. So a shift forward would mean that our mass has gone forward, and it's probably going to see and mirror a lot of those extension feelings. So as we drive forward, the heels might come up. We might also see a neck extend as we come up, and we're probably going to start to see some of that extension coming into the low back. The other sort of breakdown would be a shift backwards, and this is probably going to see a hips rise where we start to see like a good morning style squat come out of it. And ultimately to change and to improve your technique for either of those breakdowns, it's just going to be referencing and finding that midfoot as much as you can. So that's our first big rock of our squat technique. The next one is going to be our rib cage position, which is going to help us brace. So for this one, I'm just going to get James to rack it up first. Just step back for me. Just pretend you've got a bar on your back, and I want you just to play with the position of your rib cage. So you're going to drive it forward in space and extend, and then you're going to start to bring it backwards all the way, go forward again, and then find that midpoint again. And what we're probably going to feel is in that midpoint, the ribs will be down. They're not crunched. Like, I don't want you to lose height. So if you crunch into that position, that's not what we're looking for. It's just a subtle shift back to feel some abs, which is going to help us with our brace. So if James now goes back under, he's going to find his midfoot. And then hopefully with that midfoot position, he's got his ribs down in that stacked position. So in here, we should be feeling a little bit of ab tension. If you're struggling to find that ab tension, I'd recommend going and doing a plank with reach, which is in the sensory drills. So once we have that ab tension, we're trying to keep that ab tension whilst maintaining the midfoot. They're our 2 biggest rocks for squat technique. We've got to have balance, and we have to have a good braced position here. James is doing that really well. Cool, rack it back up. The final big rock of squat technique is going to be how are we actually using the bar to stiffen up the whole trunk. So once we've got our balance point and once we've got our rib cage position, it's really important that we start to layer on additional tension so that we don't lose shape as things get heavy and our RPEs go up. So for your back squat, whether it be high bar or low bar, the tendency will be that you want to squeeze back, but that drives us forward, more than likely losing our ab tension and probably driving forward into the front of the foot. So it's really important that when we're learning to build tension into the bar, we don't sacrifice the first 2 big rocks of the squat technique. So for a high bar, it's going to be really making sure we're pulling down on the bar. A cue that we like to think about is like having oranges under your armpits and trying to squeeze down on those oranges. So you're not squeezing the rib cage forward, you're squeezing down on the oranges. For a low bar position, we're just got to make sure that we don't drive the elbows too far back. Because again, if we drive too far back, rib cage goes forward and we lose those initial rocks. So let's have a look here for the high bar. So we're just going to step back, find your midfoot, find your rib cage, and then he's going to pull down, squeezing those oranges underneath. We should have lats, we should have a lot more tension, and then go through the squat there. And the goal would be to hold that tension the whole way. If we're losing any of those feelings and any of that tension, we're probably just moving a little bit too fast. So you probably just have to slow down a little bit to make sure we hold those. And then just for the sake of this, go to low bar. So low bar is going to be a little lighter. The tendency would be that we try to drive the elbows back, but that then shifts everything forward, which is not what we want. So same ideas, it's just going to be a little bit difficult in this position. We're going to have to fight a little bit harder, but now holding that shape and just go through your squat there for your low bar. So all of these big rocks of squat technique apply to the high bar, the low bar. Even if you're going to start to do SSBs with your technical exposures or your volume exposures, all of these things hold true. We've got to make sure we maintain our midfoot, and we've got to make sure that we maintain our braced position. The final thing is going to be the actual bracing process. So once we've learnt all of those things and we're feeling the right things, it's really important that we get a good inhale so that we can compress down in the trunk and create a lot of intra-abdominal pressure. The biggest thing, that the breakdown that you'll see, is that when we go to breathe in, we're going to shift into that forward position. So we're going to see a really aggressive chest rise. We're going to see extension of the back. We're going to see the neck take over a lot. We might even just see the neck drive forward as we take that inhale. These are all the things that we're trying to minimize when taking our breath in. So if you go under the bar, the way that I like to frame this with clients is that we're breathing below the level of the bar. So once we've set our position and we breathe in, everything should be happening below the barbell level. So breathe in, hold tight, tension in, and then we go. If we're seeing that breath in and all of those negative things happen, so a big driving forward of the rib cage, a big head knock, we're seeing the barbell elevate, all of that stuff is happening above the level of the bar, and it's what we want to minimize. So the breath in with this position should all be happening around the ribs, around the abs, and we should be feeling tension, and then we can just squat. Just do one more rep and come back up. Perfect. Rack it up. They are the most important things for your squat technique. Again, the three big rocks are your midfoot pressure, your rib cage position for your abs, and then layering in the tension on top of that without sacrificing those first two. Really important that when we take our breath in for the brace and the intra-abdominal pressure, we don't sacrifice all of those good things that we've just developed. So for the different exposures for your squats, your main strength day would likely be, I'd recommend it be either a high bar or a low bar back squat, whichever one you want to push more, which then makes your technical day the tempo variation of that, which would be a 3-second tempo into the bottom position. The goal with the strength exposure is that you lift as fast as you can maintain all of those little rocks of good technique. So don't add speed and add load until you can actually maintain your midfoot, maintain your brace, and maintain your tension. If you're holding those three big rocks of your squat, you can push the load and the intensity of that strength exposure. So it might look like a 1-second tempo to initially, coming down and hitting the hole, perfect. As you get better with your technique expression and your motor control improves, we can accelerate that down phase even faster. Again, we don't want to go so fast on either the down phase or the up phase where we lose those feelings. We're trying to maximize the sensory inputs in holding our technique and developing our control. For your technical day, which is a slower variation, that is our opportunity to really feel and hone in on those technical sort of pieces of the squat technique. An example of the technique exposure would be our 3-second tempo. So as James unracks this, he's going to use the high bar. So for this, we're looking for those feelings of the midfoot, the ribs, and getting that tension. And then we're just going to add a 3-second tempo down. So the tempo is allowing us to feel and load all of the things that we're looking for. The up phase is still quick, but if you lose the feelings, you're going too fast. That speed variable is going to be really important. So controlling the down phase and making sure we're loading really well, and then accelerating as much as you can to hold your positions. So again, strength exposure is probably going to be a high bar or a low bar, making sure that we're maintaining those things, but we've still got a bit of an output focus. For your technical day, it's going to be our tempo variation of either the high bar or the low bar. If you're somebody that can't tolerate 2 low bar exposures within a week, which is not uncommon, because it is a very provocative position, especially once you start to push it, your technical day will probably just become the high bar. So your low bar will be your strength exposure, exposure, your technical day would become the high bar. For your volume exposures of the squat, we have another video coming through after this one, but that is going to be anything that we can maximize our range of motion. So for the squatting, it's going to be your SSB variations or a front squat, so anterior loaded squats, which help us drive into that position and get more range of motion. Or it may actually become like a goblet squat, depending on where you're at with your training experience and your strength. However, I'd probably recommend, if you've got access, use an SSB bar, or secondary to that would be some kind of a front squat.